Hello everyone, welcome back to our GRE series. My name is Eliandi. I'm a GRE trainer here at the Kenya Airlift program. So for today, we'll be looking at text completion, specifically tips and examples for tackling these questions. So let's begin with the first one. We have the first tip is read through the sentence or passage first. That is basically don't start filling in the blanks without reading through the sentence or the passage, because reading through will give you the meaning of the sentence or the passage, and the meaning will help you to fill in the blanks. Let's look at this first example. To the untutored eye, the tightly forested Ardennes hills around Sedan look quite dash and dash place through which to advance a modern army. Even with today's more numerous and better roads and bridges, the woods and the river mews form a significant dash. So in this example, if you look at the first blank, you are unlikely to tell what the examiners wants you to fill in there, because you don't get the meaning without reading the rest of the passage. For example, look at this. To the untutored eye, the tightly forested Ardennes hills around Sedan look quite. If you stop there, it's quite difficult to tell what the blank should be filled with. Yes, but reading through the whole sentence, you get what the question is talking about. Like in this case, we can see that there are some hills, that is the Ardennes hills. They are quite thick with trees, and even an advanced modern army using the modern roads and bridges may find it difficult to pass through these woods. So that is the meaning you get when you read the sentence. So you can come back to the blanks and try to fill them. For example, here we have, to the untutored eye, the tightly forested Ardennes hills around Sedan look quite, you can say look quite thick, or look quite blocked, or something like that. And in the answer choices, we have different answer choices like impenetrable, inconsiderable, and uncultivated. Now, we have a tightly forested hill here. So that's a clue as to what this blank should be. So if the hills are tightly forested, then in the answer choices, we have impenetrable, inconsiderable, and uncultivated. The first one here, impenetrable, makes sense. Yes, because it means something that you would find it difficult to penetrate. That is literally the meaning here. Yes. To the untutored eye, the tightly forested Ardennes hills around Sedan look quite impenetrable. A dash, makeshift, unpropitious, or unremarkable. Now, makeshift here means temporary. In this context, it means temporary. Then we also have unpropitious, which means unfavorable. Unfavorable or unsuitable. Then, considering this blank, a temporary word, a temporary won't make sense here, because we'd have a temporary place through which to advance a modern army. That won't make sense. Unpropitious meanings unfavorable makes sense, given that in the first blank we have said these hills look impenetrable. So if they look impenetrable, it makes sense that they would be unfavorable. Unfavorable place through which to advance a modern army. Even with today's more numerous and better roads and bridges, the woods and the river mews form a significant. Now for the third blank, we have resource, impediment, passage. Now remember, we've said these tightly forested hills look quite impenetrable and unpropitious place through which to advance. So they basically form a hurdle, yeah, to cross, a hurdle. So among our choices here, we have resource. Resource is not a hurdle. We have impediment. That makes sense because impediment means hindrance. Hindrance. So here we'll have impediment. So for this example, we have impenetrable and unpropitious and impediment. So the sentence reads, to the untutored eye, the tightly forested Ardennes hills around Sedan look quite impenetrable and a propitious place through which to advance a modern army. Even with today's more numerous and better roads and bridges, the woods and the river meads form a significant impediment. So reading through it all allows us to understand the meaning, and understanding the meaning helps us to fill in the blanks. So basically, you should not start filling in the blanks without reading through the sentence or the passage first. Let's look at the second tip. The second tip is that you should try to fill in the blanks with your own words before looking at the answer choices. Try to pre-fill the blanks with your own words. That will help you when it comes to picking the right answer choice. So let's look at this second example. For centuries now, cancer has dust scientists. Unlike most microbes, cancer can spread to the dust organism, making it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer without thus the functions of any of the affected organs. So we have cancer, we have scientists, we have the spread of cancer through an organism. That is what we basically can come up with at the first look of this question. Now, let's see, which blank can we fill in? And which words can we use to pre-fill the blanks? So we have cancer, we have scientists reacting in a certain way to cancer, and it's not a positive reaction, we can see, because the way the cancer behaves is making it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer. So we can use that to say that maybe for centuries, cancer has baffled. Yes, maybe cancer has baffled or confused. You can use those words to pre-fill it. Cancer has, so for centuries now, cancer has confused scientists or baffled scientists. Unlike most microbes, cancer can spread to the whole organism. So we can pre-fill that word there. And I'm picking that word because the spread here is what makes it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer. Yes, and then continue without thus the functions of any of the affected organs. Of course, the scientists would not want to affect any organs of the body. They just want to deal with the cancer without affecting the organs. So here you can pre-fill it without harming. I would pick that. And without looking at the answer choices, my sentence would read, for centuries now, cancer has confused scientists. Unlike most microbes, cancer can spread to the whole organism, making it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer without harming the functions of any of the affected organs. Then now I can come to the answer choices. For blank one, I have intrigued, confounded, corrupted. Now, corrupted doesn't make sense given what I used to pre-fill the first blank here. We have intrigued and confounded. Now, both of these answer choices look attractive on the first glance. However, intrigued has a positive connotation that rules it out for this blank. because intrigued has this interest or curiosity. Interest, curiosity. But confounded means confused. So it actually makes sense here, because remember we prefilled it with confused. So we will pick confounded. So we read, for centuries now, cancer has confounded scientists. Unlike most microbes, cancer can spread to the whole organism. Now, blank 2 is quite easy here. We have actual, systematic, and entire. And because we have prefilled it with the whole, we pick entire. They have basically roughly the same meanings, making it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer without. Then here we have harming, and the answer choices: denigrating, eradicating, impairing. Yes, so which makes sense given that we had prefilled it with harming. Now, impairing makes sense here because we had prefilled it with harming. Yes. Denigrating means to unfairly criticize. Unfairly criticize. And that doesn't make sense there. Eradicating would not also make sense there. So our answers are confounded, entire, and impairing. And now our question reads, for centuries now, cancer has confounded scientists. Unlike most microbes, cancer can spread to the entire organism, making it very difficult for scientists to find a way to attack the cancer without impairing the functions of any of the affected organs. So another tip we have learned here is that you should try to prefill the blanks with your own words, and that will help you to pick the correct answer choices, given that you already know what the blank should look like.
You're watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, presented to you by Upstake America. Upstake America is a consulting company that helps immigrants find amazing higher education and job opportunities in the tech industry in the United States. You can find our programs by going to www.upstakeamerica.com. Upstake America, we wake you up to the unlimited potential.
Let's proceed to tip 3. For tip 3, we have that you should start with the easiest blank first. Yes, that is for multiple blank text completion questions. Don't feel like you have to start with the first blank. So read through the sentence or passage, get its meaning, and then prefill it, then start with the easiest blank. So let's look at this example. The recent liberal art movement of Los Angeles has inarguably thus original works by artists such as Mark Ryden, once only collected by a select few, have now garnered greater dash and often sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. The movement's detractors need not be surprised then that more people are clamoring for these works to thus more classic pieces of art galleries and museums. Okay, so we have some art here. We have auctions. We have artwork that has garnered greater something. So now let's try to prefill the blanks. Now, which blank can we start with here? For this question, the first blank is not giving me any clue. So I would start with the second or third. The second one looks attractive. We have once only collected by a select few have now garnered greater. So we have here that these works were only collected by a select few. Once only selected by a select few. So that says that something has changed and they have now garnered greater, we can say greater attraction, because only a select few were interested in these works before, but now many people are attracted to them. So they have now garnered greater attraction and often sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. The movement detractors need not be surprised then that more people are clamoring for these works to replace more classic pieces at art galleries and museums. And this makes sense because now more people want these works now, these artworks. Yes, they are more attractive, more people want them. So it makes sense that they should replace more classic pieces at the art galleries and museums. Now we can go back to our first blank, where we have the recent lowbrow art movement of Los Angeles has inarguable, we can say, admiration. People admire them. Yes. They have now gathered greater attraction and often sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The movement detractors need not be surprised then that more people are clamoring for this work to replace more classic pieces at art galleries and museums. So we started with blank 2, fill blank 3, and then blank 1. And now we can come back to our answer choices where we have esteem, panache, and lassitude for the first one. Admiration makes sense with esteem. Yes, makes sense with esteem. Panache means flamboyant style. Flamboyant style. That doesn't make sense with our admiration, prefilling. Then we have lassitude, which means weakness, yeah, mental weakness. Now for blank 2, we have depreciation, approbation, and rectitude. Now, blank 2, we had prefill with attraction, and depreciation would not make sense here. Actually, it's the opposite because this one means a decrease in value or diminishing value. Yes, diminishing. But actually, this one should be appreciating, increasing in value and increasing in attractiveness. And that is why more people now want them. So that makes sense with E, approbation. Yes. Now, rectitude has to do with behavior, moral behavior. Yes, morally correct behavior. Morally correct behavior. And that doesn't make sense with our second blank. So we have approbation. Then we have the last one, that is where we had prefill with replace. Cartel, not that meeting. Supplant, yes, because to supplant means to replace. And then we have to contravene, that is fail to comply with. Fail to comply with. That doesn't make sense. So our answer choices are esteem, approbation, and supplant. So the sentence read, the recent lowbrow art movement of Los Angeles has inarguable esteem. Has inarguable esteem. Original works by artists such as Mark Ryden, once only collected by a select few, have now garnered greater approbation and often sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. The movement's detractors need not be surprised then that more people are clamoring for these works to supplant more classic pieces of art galleries and museums. Let's look at another tip. Pay attention to trigger words. Pay attention to trigger words. So let's look at this and learn. Let's see how paying attention to trigger words can help us in text completion. While some feel that the author's death late in his life does his reputation, others felt that his dissolution added a certain glamour to his biography and credibility to his libidinous tales. Now, the trigger word here is while. Other trigger words you may see in the GRE are words like however, but, in addition. We call these trigger words because they give you a sense as to the direction the sentence or question is taking. Like in this case, we have while. This one should tell you that there is a contrast coming. You should expect a contrast. While some feel this way, others feel that way. So there are contrasting feelings. So in this case, we have, while some feel that the author does something late in his life, does his reputation, others feel the opposite. And the opposite is that others felt that his dissolution added a certain glamour to his biography and credibility. So we have here glamour, and credibility. These are all positive things. So we have a positive connotation here, glamour and credibility. So this should tell us that the first part, because it should contract with this, we should expect some negative connotations. So let's look at it again. While some feel that the author's death late in his life does damage that the author's, so we can look at this late in his life, his reputation. Now, while some feel that the author's, we are looking at vitiation, debauchment, deterioration. Vitiation here means to impair. Impair, debauchment means to corrupt. Debauchery means to corrupt, so this is corruption. Deterioration, of course, that one means diminishing or decrease. So here we have, while some feel that the author's impairment late in his life doesn't make sense, here we have debauchment, debauchery, that is to corrupt or lead away from virtue. And that makes sense because we are looking for something negative to contrast with this glamour and credibility. So debauchement makes sense here for blank 1. Then we have for blank 2, originated from. Yes, originated from, or what could we say? Happened to his reputation. We are looking for a negative connotation to contrast with glamour and credibility. So diminished, damaged his reputation. Yes, damaged. So his debauchery damaged his reputation. Yes, and damaged, we can say here, decreased, lessened. So answer choices we have derogated from, which means to diminish. Then we also have, aggrandized, and we have bedesigned. Here, the only answer choice that makes sense is the first one. This one is actually the opposite. That is, to aggrandize is to make big, because this one has the root grandeur. Yes, so that would make sense here. So we have our answer choices. Our correct answer has debauchement and derogated from. So this one here reads, while some feel that the author's debauchment leaked in his life derogated from his reputation, others felt that his dissolution added a certain glamour to his biography and credibility to his libertinous sale. So this here, while help us to know that we should contrast these blanks with glamour and credibility. That is basically the second half of the sentence contrast with the first. So if the second half is positive from glamour and credibility, the first one should be negative. And that is why we have debauchement and derogated from. Our last example is that you should not just consider the grammar while filling these blanks. Just because an answer choice is grammatically correct doesn't mean that it is the right one. Rather, you should look also at the logical correctness of the sentence. Let's look at this example. Debates over free will have always focused on the extent to which humans may be said to be fully does their actions. So in this, we have the answer choices responsible for, aware of, and based on. And all of these are grammatically correct for this blank because we can read, debates over free will have always focused on the extent to which humans may be said to be fully responsible for their actions, aware of their actions, based on their actions. If you're just focusing on grammar, all of this can make sense, especially the first and the second, that is choice A and B. But reading on the whole thing tells us that only one of them is logically correct given the meaning of the passage or the sentences. So let's continue. Dr. Wegner in his article deliberately and artfully does the traditional talking points of the controversy, instead taking a tangential, yes, instead. So here we have another trigger word, instead. So here also we see a contrast. Yes, so it doesn't focus, this doctor doesn't focus on the traditional talking points. Instead, asking a tangential, though possibly more, does question, what effect does a person's belief in free will have on his or her well-being? So here we can prefill them first as we have been discussing. Instead, asking a tangential, though possibly more, crucial or critical. Can prefill that, crucial or critical. Yes, Dr. Wegner in his article deliberately and artfully avoids. He avoids the traditional one. Instead, he takes a tangential and though more possibly crucial question. So then we go back to blank one. Debates over free will have always focused on the extent to which humans may be said to be fully aware or responsible. These ones both look a bit attractive, but responsible for gives a more logical meaning to this sentence because this is something controversial. Awareness of your actions or awareness of human action is not that controversial. It makes more logical sense to question whether people are responsible for all of their actions. So logically, choice A is the correct one. And we read, debates over free will have always focused on the extent to which humans may be said to be fully responsible for their action. Dr. Wegner in his article deliberately and artfully avoids or eschews. Yes, that is the meaning of avoiding, eschews the traditional talking points of the controversy. Instead, asking a tangential, though possibly more fundamental question, what effect does a person's belief in free will have on his or her well-being? So our answer choices are A, E, and G. Those are the correct answers. So we can read the sentences. Debates over free will have always focused on the extent to which humans may be said to be fully responsible for their actions. Dr. Wegner, in his article, deliberately and artfully eschews the traditional talking points of the controversy, instead asking a tangential, though possibly more fundamental question: what effect does a person's belief in free will have on his or her well-being? So that is the end of our session today. I hope you have learned something. Thank you for watching and welcome back to our next session. Bye-bye.